explains the meaning behind not like us. Not like us is the energy of who I am, the type of man I represent. This man has morals, he has values, he believes in something, he stands on something, he's not pandering. He's a man who can recognize his mistakes and not be afraid to share the mistakes and can down into fear-based ideologies or experiences to be able to express them without feeling like he's less of a man. If I'm thinking of not like us, I'm thinking of me and whoever identifies with that. I got to call cap on Kendrick Lamar. And this is why earlier in the episode, what I was saying about this episode or this interview being PC, I mean, SZA really didn't even ask him about Not Like Us. That question alone, what does Not Like Us represent, I think could have been asked in a different way, a complete different way. And so I think that, for one, I want to get on the fact that Kendrick first interview back from the Not Like Us debacle. He has the Super Bowl lined up. He goes to Harpers Bazaar. I love Kendrick. I think Kendrick's a great artist. I think he does a lot just, from face value for Black people. But your first interview back from making a smash hit that the culture took and made it a cultural anthem, you then go to Harper's Bazaar, which, in my opinion, that's industry, just like the Chanel shit. That's very industry. We expected, and I expected, let me say I expected for you to do something a little bit more for the culture. So in my opinion, that's a bad move to go to Harper's Bazaar for your first interview after this Not Like Us situation. There was plenty of people that you could have went to in the hip hop community that bigged you up. You could have went to Joe Budden one-on-one, right? You could have went to Charlamagne the God one-on-one. You could have went to DJ Head and Elliott Wilson. You could have went over there, which is an LA platform. You could have went to who else? You could have went to, I said Joe Budden, I said Charlamagne, I said Elliott Wilson. You could have went to Zane Lowe and Apple Music and Ebro. You could have did anything because a lot of them bigged you up the whole entire time during this beef. So Kendrick Lamar had the chance to go to any of these platforms, and who's to say he's not going to in the future? But for the first interview, he could have chose from the cream of the crop from hip hop community platforms, and he decided to go with Harper's Bazaar. So to me, that's already one strike. That's already a bad move on his end. I 100% expected him for him to pop out and do something with the culture. Now, the reason why I think he did that was because he wants to avoid some of the messy questions that we know hip hop media platforms are going to ask him. Let's keep it 100. With an interview like the Harper's Bazaar one, where it seemed like it was written out, and I don't know if that's because we're reading it, but it seemed very staged. It seemed very already answered. There was times where SZA asked him 3 questions, and he answered right away with 3 answers, and they were very in depth. And I just feel like to do that without any preparation is a little bit hard to do. Not saying that he couldn't have done it or it didn't come from the heart, but it seems like when you're reading it on the article, it's cleaned up. Either that or it's completely staged. Because the things that she asked, he had such a perfect response for, and vice versa. And then again, when she talked to him about Not Like Us, that was his response. Look, on one end, Not Like Us is the energy of who he is. He's saying he stands on morals and he doesn't pander and things of that nature. That is a key within a song. So I do want to give him credit for that, because Not Like Us is, if you do read into it or listen into it more, it is an anthem, and it is a song about somebody who stands on morals and principles and is not willing to sell their soul for the fame. It is. And it is that because he's making fun of Drake for doing those exact things. Right? But see, you do that and you say you're a culture vulture, and you were Tommy Hilfiger but never FUBU, but then your first interview back, you jump on Harper's Bazaar. Make that make sense. So again, I'm here to give y'all unbiased opinions on how I feel about this situation, but let's keep it 100. Make that make sense. You just said he's doing all this stuff to be a culture vulture. He's not really for the culture. And then your first interview back, you hop on something that none of the culture knows what that is. I don't care how accredited it is. I don't care how much of weight it holds in the industry or whatever the case is. That's not something that we can relate to. You know what I mean? So to me, that is a shot in the dark. That was an L. You're being a hypocrite in a way, because again, those people that you went on that interview with, that you did that interview for, they're not like us, in my opinion. So they're not for the culture, in my opinion. So I think that was the wrong move. And I think that he avoided going to a hip hop platform, like I said, because I think that he knows they're going to ask those tricky questions. And I think that he wanted to dance around that. When you look at this answer, I mean, it's like, it has nothing to do with Drake. You spent a whole last verse telling us the history of Atlanta and then comparing that history to Drake and his infiltration of Atlanta. Then turned around and called him a 6'9" god and a freaky ass nigga, and then put a pedophilia symbol on 9 people around the building of his complex, took a picture of that and posted that as the song. Had people go back in time, look up why is there 9 signs or 7 signs, 7 head symbols, finds out there's 7 people in his crib that might have, issues going on. You went and did a deep dive to hurt Drake. Let's keep it 100. So when you're asked, what does Not Like Us represent? It's 100% cap to say just that. I'm not saying that that's the all of the Not Like Us. I'm not saying that that's the whole song, because I do believe that a part of this is true. It is about somebody who stands on morals, who can recognize his mistakes and not be afraid. You know what I mean? Those things, I think it is a part of the song, because he's showing and pointing at Drake for not doing that. So I understand that. But I wish he would have said, yo, this was a diss. That's what this was. He alludes to it by saying, oh, I'm not an angry person, and I don't come out of, or give people advice to be angry. I believe in love and war, and I believe that they both have to exist. So that's him alluding to, oh, okay, I'm not angry at Drake, and I didn't do it because I disliked him. I just did it because I needed to teach him a lesson. And I feel like, again, that's still bullshit, and that's taking this higher road approach that is not fair. And really, throughout the battle, he's been able to take. Let's keep it 100. Kendrick has been able to take the godlike, higher than thou, better than thou road the whole entire time, while at certain times doing the exact same things Drake is doing. When you see the Harpers Bazaar, that's something a culture vulture would do. When you see the bots and certain things that came into play when it comes to Kendrick Lamar's song and Drake's song, they're doing the same exact things. But the only thing is that one person has the benefit of the doubt and is looked at is up here, while the other person is looked down here. Now, this has nothing to do with who won lyrically and song-wise. I'm just saying the optics of how these two people look from now on. Completely different situation now. So that's what I'm here to poke at right now. Like, you avoided Joe Budden because Joe Budden would have put pressure and applied pressure and asked you to explain maybe some of the things that were forthcoming of this beef. Maybe Ebro would have asked you, did you already have it pre-recorded? Because we've been hearing that. Was it already pre-recorded? How long have you had this in the tuck? What was your inspiration for this? Are you guys going to be friends again? Do you want it to actually spill over into violence? These are questions that we would have wanted answered from Kendrick Lamar that hip hop media platforms would have asked him. And he avoided that because he didn't want to answer those tough questions. And I get it. But the more that, the longer the beef goes or the more time passes on a beef, and he talks about in the interview how, when he does something, he can't 100% attach himself to it because it wouldn't be him. And then he would have to judge every little thing that he does while being that character. And while I can kind of agree with that, you can't be too invested into the artist to where it becomes you. Again, that's a cop-out. Because then it's like, okay, so you can diss Drake, you can say all this stuff, and then you can just separate from it. While there's turmoil down here, niggas getting their heads cut off down here, everything going on down here, you can separate from it now and just be like, oh, I don't know. That wasn't me. That was the rapper. That wasn't me. That doesn't sound very rap beefish to me. And see, that's another hypocrisy within it. You can't run from this shit. You dissed him and called him a pedophile, bro. You had thousands of people calling him a pedophile. This is not something that you can say, oh, you have to wear that beef on your jacket the same way he is. And this is what I'm saying about the optics of it. Because when Drake runs around, what do you think people are thinking? Oh, you just got washed by K-Dot, this and that. With Kendrick, it's almost like, oh, I'm over it. I did what I did, and I'm done with it. That's not fair when Drake has to run around with this probably for the rest of his career.